Bob Ferguson got like 30 seconds to do a final rebuttal, and he didn't answer for anything that Dave Reichert was asking him about. And he brought up this issue of additional funding for police officers. Here it is.
So Washington State has per capita the lowest number of law enforcement officers of any state in the country. My criminal justice plan details how we're going to change that. In my first budget as governor, we're going to put together a budget that invests $100 million. So local jurisdictions, your cities, your counties, the folks who hire most of the police officers across our state can use those dollars for increased salaries, for signing bonuses. That gets first responders on the streets. That helps solve crimes and lets the prosecutors in my team, in my office, do the work to send those folks away.
Yeah. So, okay, there's a lot of things I want to say about that. I'm debating how big of a rant, how angry of a rant I go on today. What do you think? Still blowing the winds? Yeah, let's act pissed off, because I really am. So here's the thing. Bob believes that he can throw money at this issue and it's going to get better. He just fundamentally misunderstands what's going on. He fundamentally does not understand why we have the lowest number of police officers per capita of any state in the nation. He believes it's a pay problem. Look, I think that law enforcement officers should be well paid, and guess what? They are. If you look at, you have some Seattle police officers who are making over $200,000 a year. You have some state patrolmen who are making over $200,000 a year. We pay our law enforcement officers in this state very, very well. That is not the problem. And if you took the time to talk to any law enforcement entity in this state, any police union in this state, that is not even going to be at the top of their list. There might be some benefit issues that they want to talk about, especially as they get closer to retirement, but that is not going to be in the top 5 things that they need in order to recruit and retain good law enforcement officers. It's respect. It's respect for the difficult job that they're doing. It's the belief that the attorney general or that their boss isn't going to advocate for them to be politically pursued and prosecuted and put in prison if they do their jobs and in a split-second life or death moment make a decision that might be not quite in line with policy. They want to know that they're not going to have someone like Bob Ferguson, who has prosecuted more police officers than he's ever hired. He's hired 0 police officers. He's prosecuted more than 4. So they want to know that they have someone who has their back when they do their jobs in good faith. And Bob Ferguson is not that person. Jay Inslee has not been that person. There's a reason why Jay Inslee was hardly ever invited to the funerals of fallen police officers. Because they don't respect him. They don't respect his policies because his policies don't respect them and don't respect the sacrifice. And Bob Ferguson, he takes to Twitter after the debate, says, I'll create a $100 million grant program to help local governments hire more well-trained police officers. Dave Reichert is trying to distract you from the fact that he opposes pay raises for police officers. Supporting law enforcement means investing in law enforcement. How dare you? First of all, Dave Reichert has never said that he opposes pay raises for police officers. He's just made the point that I've made right now, that law enforcement officers are well paid in our state. Same with teachers. Just like he said, the problem in our education system isn't the pay for teachers, it's our priorities. It's the messaging from the top down. Dave Reichert understands that law enforcement officers, their biggest problem isn't pay. Their biggest problem is a lack of respect from the people who they work for, people like Bob Ferguson. And it speaks volumes about Bob Ferguson that he believes that throwing money at this problem is the answer. You cannot buy their dignity. You cannot buy their loyalty. And you cannot put a price on their lives. And I'll just say, and I don't know, this is where I was like, how angry do I get today? So Dave Reichert told me, I didn't ask him if I could share this. I saw him after the debate. You know what he told me? He told me that the Troopers Union decided to stay neutral in the race for governor. The union that represents our Washington State Patrol troopers decided to stay neutral in the race for governor. That is, not endorse Dave Reichert and not endorse Bob Ferguson. Look, you guys know I respect you. You know I respect the men and women of law enforcement. I have had your back at times where it's been very difficult to, at times where I've been personally attacked for having your back. It's a shameful position to take. It's a shameful position to take. You have troopers that would be alive today. Trooper Christopher Gadd, he'd be alive today if it weren't for the policies of people like Bob Ferguson, if it weren't for the policies of people like Jay Inslee. And I get it. You're worried about retribution. I get it that if Bob Ferguson is elected governor, which is very possible, that he's going to be your boss. But how much more could he hate you than he does already? How much more could he disrespect you than he does already? This is a man who politically prosecutes police officers for fun. And so I understand that he has a reputation about holding grudges. And that as a troopers union, you're looking at this and you're saying, well, man, if he's elected, we don't want him to, hurt our contract negotiations or make our lives miserable. He's going to do it anyway. He hates police officers. He has shown that over the course of 12 years. That's who he is. But again, I go back to it's a life or death situation. For your men and women who are out on the streets every single day, you have someone like Bob Ferguson, who never said, he didn't say jack shit when you had lawmakers of his own political party who rolled back police pursuits. You know what agency that impacted the most? The agency that's out there patrolling our highways, the Washington State Patrol. He didn't say anything about it. When did he finally speak up about it? Just this year, when it became clear that an initiative to roll back those policies and those restrictions was going to be successful. And he was running for governor and he said, which way are the political winds blowing? Oh yeah, I never supported the rollback in police pursuits. Never did. I thought that was a bad policy. It was dangerous for our communities. It was dangerous for law enforcement. He took a position after 3 years, didn't say anything in 2021, didn't say anything in 2022, didn't say anything in 2023. And then in 2024, he gets on the news and said, I never supported that. I am a public safety candidate. Bullshit, you're a public safety candidate. And so yes, for the troopers union, I think it's a shameful and cowardly position to take. And I don't like to use cowardly and refer to it in our law enforcement. I don't believe our state troopers are cowards. But I believe this was a political calculation to say, we don't want to anger him if he's the governor. But this is a life or death situation, quite literally, for the men and women of the state patrol and for the other law enforcement agencies in our state. And to sit it out and say no opinion when you're talking about someone who has a 40-year track record of having the back of our men and women in uniform at a time when we have a public safety crisis on our hands, and you say we're going to sit this one out because you're scared what he might do. Forgive me if I have a hard time wrapping my mind around that. And I realize that I'm not the one who puts on the uniform every day and goes out there and has to deal with the political implications of the job. I realize I'm not the one who's going out there every day and putting my life on the line and who has to decide, well, is Bob Ferguson going to be mad? Is he going to do things as governor because we didn't endorse him or we endorsed his opponent that's going to make my life more difficult? Could it get any more difficult than it is already? Could it get any worse than it is already? Down hundreds of troopers. And by the way, did he ever stick up for the men and women of the state patrol who were fired over the vaccine mandate? Never did. Down hundreds of Seattle police officers. Did he ever speak up during the police defunding debate that pushed them out the door? Never did. Never said anything. Did he say anything when Seattle police cars were on fire in the middle of downtown Seattle in the summer of 2020? Never said anything. Never said a word. Did he say anything when rioters took over an entire police precinct and rendered it useless for an entire neighborhood in the state's largest city? Never said anything. Never said a word. And you're going to stay neutral. That's the decision you make. I think it's a shameful decision. That's where I stand. I understand that you have implications and you have considerations that you're making that are political. But we put our ass on the line every single day, not in the way you do. Certainly, I don't want to compare it at all. You don't think that I'm worried and that Nicole's worried and that other people who have stood up to Bob Ferguson aren't worried about the ramifications if he's elected governor? I think about it every day. Look what he did to Tim Eyman. He ruined Tim Eyman's life. He spent more money going after Tim Eyman than the state is ever going to get from Tim Eyman. All because Tim Eyman pushed initiatives that Democrats didn't like. He ruined his life. Look what he did to the Tacoma police officers. Cleared in internal investigations. But he decided to put them on trial for murder because it was the politically palatable thing to do. So you have all these people who are making difficult decisions to support someone who can help save the lives of our law enforcement officers, who can help turn around the public safety crisis. And they're doing it in spite of the risks. State troopers, man, you put your lives on the line every day, and you can't sit in a boardroom as union representatives and take a risk that involves endorsing a political candidate. It's beyond my comprehension, and it's really disappointing.